All right. Good morning. I'm here with Mike Patterson and Chris Lord of Intech Services, and we're here because 2020 is a year of adaptation for so many of us and so many businesses. And like any strong business, Intech is following suit. So we're here to talk to you a little bit about that today. New way of communicating with customers, with suppliers. So my first question this morning is for you, Chris. What kind of forms of communication have you used in the past when it came to reaching out, communicating, and staying in touch with your customers?
But traditional forms of communication, Nick, were more around electronic. We were sending out, e-blasts, and we were utilizing our blog and things like that. And a lot of that, we're able to read, response rates, who read stuff, who opened things, who did click-throughs. But the only thing with that is it's kind of a one-way communication. You're not really sure of the response. The only, or one of the few benefits we see from it is some people save those communications and actually reach back out to us, based on that communication. It may be something completely different, but that's how we were staying in front, and we were sending out a lot of educational pieces that way. But again, you lose a little bit on the impact that you have with just that one-way communication.
No doubt. And the importance of providing education, I'm learning every day how much goes into this business as far as education and research, and how important that is, not just for your customers, for your sales team, your crew. As far as making this adaptation, Mike, was it becoming fairly obvious that that newsletter and that print medium needed to change, at least for this moment?
That's a good question. And it really, to me, wasn't obvious that we had to change it because, like as Chris mentioned, our open rates and click-throughs are really high, much higher than the industry average for e-marketing. So, excuse me, we are always pleased with that. But I think we just wanted to take it in a different direction because this was the time when we felt it was important to have a personal touch. During a time when we can't travel as much and we can't see our customers and our key suppliers and other people in the industry, we wanted to kind of change it up and put ourselves out in front of our audience more to have that personal connection, to not to take the place of travel, but to kind of fill the gap and also just communicate in a potentially more effective manner.
We're going to get to the inability to travel in a little bit, but as far as communicating more effectively, there are some very real trends right now that can't be ignored and can't be dismissed, where it seems like everyone you talk to has a general sense of reader fatigue, and that can be work-related content, or there's too many articles about the Phillies bullpen right now. There's something that people just kind of turn off, and I think the idea of doom scrolling and just reading so much, this kind of communication is going to be much more effective, and it's a little bit more personal, as you spoke to. Chris, do you see this format helping you kind of nurture and foster relationships since you can't hop on a plane?
Yeah, Nick, I do find the value in this, and Mike alluded to it a little bit in his response about moving to this medium. Is the personal touch, is people get to see us and get to see our personality, and I think that comes out. Those don't come out so much in an email. So I do find this as an advantage for Intech, because I feel like we're a pretty well tenured staff. I think we have a lot to offer, and I think our personalities really do help us in those face-to-face types of interactions. And unfortunately, that's really been minimized right now. So it's just a way for us to be in front and know that we're still around. I'm still the same guy that you've been talking to for the last 11 years, and and we'll see how it goes. But I'm really optimistic on how it's gonna play out.
Yeah, to kind of build on what Chris is saying, I always look at it as business is personal, and a lot of our relationships and customers, we've had relationships with these people for decades, and so we really want to kind of add that personal touch back in, and also take it to a level where it's beyond just words on a page, and let people meet not just the author of a blog, but everyone in our organization. So as we continue to do these videos, it's not just going to be Chris and I that are on the videos. You're going to have an opportunity to see everybody from the sales team to the business service team and everybody that's involved in the process of delivering Teflon information and products to our customer base, and really kind of bring everybody into the fold.
All right, since the theme of this is, adaptation and going remote, I wanted to talk just a bit about that because I think it's important. It's important for the people that interact with you to understand what went into this as well. I want to go back to March, that decision to kind of reshuffle the decks and restructure your day-to-day workforce, Mike. When I look at the calendar, it's been 157 days since that office has existed as a working kind of tandem of people that you've relied on for years and years. You have an in-demand product, but sometimes that's not good enough anymore. Maybe that's not enough right now. You need to offer more. You're used to offering more to your customers and your suppliers. What went into this decision of going remote, and was there any fear involved in it, if we can be really honest?
Yeah, it's a great concept because there's a lot that goes into a decision, especially one that drastically changes how we do business and how we operate internally. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm a huge proponent of culture and the power of culture and the power of being together and working together as a community. And so when we were faced with the COVID and the pandemic, there's two things that really struck me. One was how fast we had to make a decision because it came like 0 to 60, like just like that. So that was really, really striking to me is there was not a lot of time to sit and think. We really had to make some decisions quickly. And secondly, it was hard to make the decisions because no one's been down this path before. There wasn't a blueprint for what to do in the case of a pandemic and how to operate in the office to keep everybody safe, and so many factors from the outside world in terms of how people were interacting, their families, and the potential risk that they're subjected to, either through older parents or for young children or any number of different family dynamic. That all had to weigh into it. And so when we sat down as a team, the leadership team, and said, what are we going to do? I mean, it became very obvious very quickly that we had to make some drastic changes. But it was difficult because I didn't want to undermine the power of everything that we've spent decades building, which is our team. And so it was really came down to how do we keep everybody safe and how do we make it so that we continue to be effective and continue to bring service and support to our customers.
I look at to build on that a little bit, Nick. I mean, I think you look at originally when we were doing this, we have snow days here where we have to be able to be nimble and transition to a remote type of work environment. And when COVID started, I mean, you just mentioned 157 days we've been doing this. I mean, nobody thought it would ever be that long. No. When we started this, we were thinking, 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month, we'll be at home and we'll be able to transition pretty easily. And we do have the infrastructure to do that. So, I mean, that decision was fairly easy for us. But, there's a piece to our business of just being here and, like cooler talk that, Mike likes to talk about all the time where, my office is right next to his. He hears my conversations. And if he hears something, that's strikes him or something that he wants to elaborate on more, he'll just walk over after my call and we'll talk about it more. We don't have that anymore. It's him and I having to connect, one-on-one and be like, hey, what's going on? How are things, going with the team? How are things going with you? And I think, that's kind of the transition you had to make was to start having that personal connection again, just through the phone and not, like, hey, even though we're, 15, 20 miles from each other, I'm not doing work in California. I'm not miles and miles away and I'm never going to see Mike again until, I hop on a plane. That's not the case. But, that cooler talk and that office talk that we have, that dynamic, that we feel that for sure. That's definitely something that, has hit us pretty hard.
Chris mentioned the snow days, and that's the other part of it. Something like a snow day, I know damn well people aren't working 100% on a snow day. People are messing around with their kids. They're doing like drinking with their neighbors. They're doing all that kind of stuff on snow days, and you like cut that slack to people because I'm doing the same damn thing, right? So those you deal with. Something like a pandemic that you don't know where the end is, then you have to be like, okay, so we're going to do this, but we still have to be effective and we still have to be delivering high, consistent workload. And so that was the challenge that we talked about. It was like, oh, so how are we going to do this where everybody's working at home and everybody has to be trusted that they're going to get their work done without us hanging over their shoulder, because we don't micromanage. That's just not how we operate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so much that goes back to a point Chris made about just no one knew, right? I think it was kind of like we had this kind of easy understanding between most of us, like, man, if we just lock down for a month, we can get going again. And I don't think any of us would sit here thinking that September rolls around and we're still going to be in these roles. So there's a lot of fear of the unknown there. And if I can hang on that fear point for just a second longer, I wanted to take something right off your website through your words. I wanted you to respond. I'm going to start with you, Chris. There's something that you provide and you guys value internally. It's a cultural value at Intech where you provide value that goes beyond the transaction. It's a hell of a lot to live up to when you can't be present every day. Is there like a fear you got to let go of where you say, yeah, I'm going to have so-and-so here in a certain day. I guarantee they've got the ability to get the job done. I mean, you've trained people, you've educated them that long, but there's still got to be a little bit of trepidation. Maybe that's the better word than fear to go into that kind of scenario.
Yeah, there's fear going into this, and part of it is how effective are people going to be from working from home, first time they've ever had to do that, and but there's a handoff as well, and part of this managing a remote sales team and making sure we're doing the things we're supposed to do is that you've done your job and building educating them and making clear to them what the goal is and what their daily quotas or requirements are, what we expect out of you. And if there's that clear expectation, that handoff is not as hard. You don't feel like my guys are just going to sit at home and hang out and watch TV and sit on Netflix and we have a business to take care of here, and it's a great business. We've really built something here, and I think we've been able to maintain it. Even through COVID, I think our guys have actually grown as a part of it, because you've got to let them wander off a little bit and find answers on their own. And one of the biggest things that I've kind of gotten myself into now is creating routines for them. This is a routine now. Your former routine was to come in here every day. You go, you might have, spend 20 minutes having a cup of coffee, meeting with everybody, find out what's going on in their lives and things like that. And you kind of, get into your day. That's completely different now. And you got to set up a new routine. And that little bit of structure, just little things, keeps you on point and keeps you, going in the direction that you need to be going. And that's really what I've been driving towards is making sure my guys have good, solid routines so that they're taking care of the business the way that we expect them to.
That's a strong point, Chris, and I think that's the internal part that we've really focused on. And if you look at the world, the business world out there, and our customers and the coding end of that world, the amount of uncertainty coming at everyone is from every different angle is overwhelming, and a lot of times. So we try to take as much of that out as we possibly can. So we want to not have people worry about their supply or if they can get an answer to a question, because we've been consistent with that before, and we want to continue to be consistent with that moving forward. So we really stress that with internally, is that no drop off in service, no drop off in support, and we want to continue to be that steady Eddie resource for our customers. And so the first step in doing that is exactly what Chris was talking about, which is creating that routine and creating that consistency internally to allow us to project that externally.
Yeah, routine, consistency, and being able to allow that into your customers' lives a little bit. They expect a person at the end of that phone. They expect the phone to actually be picked up and not to go to a phone bank. It's important to stay consistent and keep that confidence in the consumer as well. Have you been able
Nick, we have that, excuse me if I can interrupt, we have that expectation with our internal customers as well, meaning our own employees. if I need something or Mike needs something, I'm communicating. I have an expectation. I'm going to get an answer within a specific amount of time because we're all watching the fort. It's not just one guy overseeing everything. We all have our functions, and we have the expectation that our internal people are going to get back to us quickly as well.
Internally, have you, as far as checking in on your guys, Chris, how have you been able to maintain the culture that they've come to know and appreciate over the course of time? I know you've made some adaptations and some shifts to try to allow for that.
Well, we included we have a check-in meeting once a week now, and it's fairly informal. Mike, Chris, all the sales guys, Patrick, Steve, and Tyler, myself, we're all on that call, and it's just a chance for us to all connect. It's a chance for us to talk about what's going on in their Teflon worlds and calls that they're having, opportunities, concerns, things like that, and it allows everybody to have some input, but also gives them a chance to talk to Mike and talk to me and get comfortable with presenting Teflon information. Some of our guys are relatively new, and we spent the last 5-6 months not traveling, not really being together, and I think the bigger thing is us not seeing each other. Karen Nardo has been here for 20 some years. I've been here 11 years. I came into work the other day and saw her, and she had bought a new car, and I didn't even know it. And I said, "How long ago did you get that new car?" She goes, 2 months ago. I haven't seen her in 2 months. This is a person I see every day, and that's like that's just the kind of the weirdness of COVID is. You're not even seeing the people. I spend more time with people in here than I might spend with my wife. So.
What's kind of funny with that is there's a number of people in the office that are like the young guys that are engaged. They're like pushing weddings back. People are buying houses, selling houses, buying cars. There's one person that's now expecting a baby and will probably have the baby before people are back in the office. So it's this whole life goes on. And it's just a matter of how you adapt to it and kind of facilitate it and keep moving our agenda forward at Intech to allow for these different variables that are happening in life to continue to move forward.
That's very well said.
Yeah, and I think the things that we have set up here, Nick, ensures our success. I think we have a lot of good things here. We had a great foundation to be able to transition to this COVID environment. And and I think we've been really successful in spite of COVID and all the things that it brings to the table. And one of the messages I think that that we've delivered to our customers, a lot of people are concerned about like, oh, my business is down, and some people got hit harder than others. It's really a chance for us to kind of you look at what we're doing. Are we doing the right things? Revisit, how we do marketing, which is what we're doing right now. The industries that we're looking at. And what's funny is you end up becoming busier than ever because you're kind of having checking yourself, so to speak. To make sure you're doing the right things and you're setting yourself up. So when we spin out of COVID, we're going to be able to hit the ground running. I hate to use a term like that, but we should be able to. And I fully believe that once things loosen up a little bit, we're ready to fire on all cylinders for sure.
And to wind up there, something that was just said, Chris, that I think more people need to hear. You mentioned something that not a lot of us are talking about, but I think we need to. I think it's important that adapting the way we've had has made us better. It's made us work at being better at our jobs in so many ways. So when we do come out of this, I think we're just going to be stronger top to bottom. Intech stronger top to bottom. I think people are going to be better top to bottom, making smarter decisions, supporting their businesses with a conscientious mind. So it's a really good point you made, and I wanted to focus on that, to give some sort of positive outlook in the midst of all this. Because we're about to return to something else that's just not there anymore, not available. We're living in a holding pattern in so many ways, but your business, from what I understand, and it's a very layman's understanding of it, but growth in your business happens traditionally through things like walking a trade show floor, from networking. Those things aren't there. How deep of a cut is that industry wise, Mike, that you don't have those opportunities available to you?
Things like trade shows and networking were absolutely a big part of what we did to help grow the business. In terms of understanding the industry, understanding new industries, and if there's a home for Teflon or if there's a need for Teflon in a industry. Kind of the really cool thing about Teflon world and the fluoropolymer world is there's old traditional industries that are 75 years old, and then there's new emerging industries that are just developing. And there's a home for Teflon in almost every industry out there. So we really try to avail ourselves to as much as we can about what's happening in these industries, because things change in traditional industries and things develop in new industries. So we want to be connected to what's happening out there. And the best way to do it is to go to industries, go to trade shows, go to industry associations and gatherings and conferences, and hear the pain points and meet the people who are dealing with problems that perhaps Teflon can solve. So in lieu of that not happening, it makes it hard, and it makes our investigative work, so to speak, more difficult, because we have to dig a lot harder over the phone and on the internet, which can be done. But to me, it just takes significantly longer to get all those answers versus what you can get in a 2 or 3 day trip to the right show or to the right conference.
Okay. Well,
And those trade shows, Nick, are super educational. Like, you can see kind of how things operate and work versus just kind of reading about it and getting a theoretical grasp. So, we do use it for that, but we kind of have a two-headed monster here where, our sales is, process is more, it's industry related, and then it's account management. So we do both of those things, and, maybe a little bit more account management heavy. But one of the things that we've heard about over time is just that you guys need to bring us new opportunities. Our customers ask for that, and we were trying to figure out ways that we could do that. Now, we can always do lead generation, and we can do that from here, and we're doing that now. We're brushing up our marketing documents to make sure that they're relevant. Are we focusing on the right markets? Things like that. And the nice thing about Intech, we're nimble. We can. If we decide that a market's not panning out or we're not getting the results that we want, we have another industry we can go to, and we've got a whole lineup of things that we can do. We're not naive to think that we have everybody's business in every market. We don't. There's other market. There's traditional markets that we do business in. We don't have all their business, and we can start digging into that if we want to, and those are the things that we're doing. Educating ourselves, finding new places to go, or connecting with people we've never connected with, and that's what we're doing now. But like I said, once this loosens up, we're going to be ready to go.
I have to think industry wise, the lack of trade shows has to hurt. But as far as internally, the inability to hop on a plane and go visit clients, customers, that's got to hurt, right? That's got to take away a key part of the business, Mike.
It does. Like I said at the beginning, we like to have the personal touch. We like to develop relationships because, in our opinion, that's how business is done, and that's how long-term relationships and long-term business success happens together. So it certainly hurts there. Where it also hurts, in my estimation, is, Chris mentioned we have some younger sales reps, and younger being just, a handful of years, not a handful of months. So they're developed, but a key part of developing in a Teflon sales role is getting out there and seeing people, seeing their operations, seeing how things are done, and really just walking a mile in their shoes as much as you can, really. So to me, that's the other part of this is, we talk about developing business, but a key part of it is developing our people. And so when they can't avail themselves to the opportunity to see things with their own eyes, and they have to rely on videos or pictures or things they read on the internet, it makes it more difficult, and it kind of slows their progression. But Chris keeps he keeps them moving. He's on them. He does a lot to continue to develop them, but I think it hurts to not be able to let them get out and see it for their own two eyes.
Seeing it is one thing, but participating in it too, correct? My past life, I come from the world of education. And when I see your younger guys and I see how they've grown, I can't tell you like how impressed I am that a year, 2 years in, people can speak to these processes and these applications. It's an incredible bit of development and growth. And I know that part of getting them on the road is also presenting, educating, doing those things, and that is one way to really progress in your education and research, is having to present it to people. And I know you guys have a good track record of going out and presenting and getting on the road in front of other people. So got to be looking forward to when those opportunities are available again. I've got the next thing I like both your responses on, if I could. And I'm going to start with you, Chris. During this time, what markets do you expect to grow? Not in spite of COVID, but simply because we're going through COVID.
Well, we're in this new virtual reality. It's not new, but it's more prevalent than it's ever been. And if you talk to a lot of people, that's not going away. We're going to continue to go down this path. And there's definitely demand in the semiconductor industry. We have several products that are specified in that industry, and it's going to continue to grow, or at least sustain itself. So that's something that we're focused on, and we have a nice product line to support that business. So that's one thing that I definitely see, at least growing, over the course of or because of COVID, I guess we'll say.
And Mike?
I think I like this question a lot, and and I relate this COVID experience a lot to 2009, when we were in the middle of a recession. And one thing we learned then that I've seen also now is that food processing goes crazy during times of recession. The reason being is people are eating more at home. So whether it's cheese manufacturing or bread manufacturing or cookies and crackers or tortillas or you name it, those businesses and those parts that are used in the manufacture of those food products, they're running at top speeds, and the recoat business on those parts and those components are really busy. So food processing is one that, because of COVID, is really strong for us right now. But I'm going to throw a couple other ones out. One that we're not really involved in an industry that I see blowing up now is alcohol. People are drinking their faces off during times of recession. And so, alcohol, like if you look at the aluminum market, the aluminum market is in such short demand because everybody's drinking out of cans. They're not going to bars and drinking off of taps as much as they were. So like the product mix for alcohol distributors has switched because of COVID, and that's trickled down to aluminum, and that trickles down even to the Teflon coating world, because now people who are trying to get aluminum components are having a difficult time doing it, and the prices start switching around. So, it has a small impact on us, but anybody involved in alcohol is super busy. A third one that we're starting to see a lot of now is the cannabis world. And so from the extraction and processing of cannabis products, whether it's trimming or extraction world type scenarios, those are sticky flowers, sticky materials, and Teflon is a great solution for any of those sticking problems. So we're starting to see more and more inquiries from cannabis manufacturing segment, because that is an essential business, and the sales are continuing to grow, no pun intended, as states continue to legalize either medically or recreationally.
Yeah, we've seen unbelievable numbers in the cannabis world coming out of markets like California. Just had their strongest month ever since they legalized in 2018. And we certainly know that alcohol is selling, especially if we're following the Phillies and their pitching. We'll go back to that as a minor theme. I wanted to ask you this, as I'm learning more about this. What's clearly evident is there's a symbiosis. There's this connection with the manufacturing world and the coating world. They're very closely linked. So I look at automobile sales going up, but manufacturing is bottlenecked, if I can use that term. Can you speak to COVID's effect on manufacturing in different markets and how that affects the coating world, Chris?
Well, yeah, I mean, COVID had an effect on people that were heavy manufacturing, where you have a lot of employees and things like that, where they're side by side. We have a couple customers that notified us of outbreaks which affects their processing ability because, you know, you had numerous people that contracted the virus, and then they had to shut down the plant, et cetera. So, you know, high volume manufacturing places were definitely affected by COVID. And they've had to deal with that. And again, another thing, you know, what we saw in like the textile industry, you know, obviously toilet paper and paper towels went crazy. Everybody's buying it. There was going to be a shortage. And, you know, they utilized Teflon, you know, for the non-wovens and things like that. They were actually allowing the pieces to go past failure because they couldn't afford to take the line down to put in new parts to have them recoated. They were just dealing with, you know, the shortcomings of not having them coated anymore, which is, you know, a huge pain to them. But there was such a demand. They didn't want to stop the train. They just wanted to keep on going. So, you know, there's an effect right there of COVID. And, you know, thankfully, I think we all have our toilet paper and paper towels and stuff like that. But, you know, it got a little crazy there for a while. Everybody was buying all that stuff, thinking there was going to be a famine, I guess, or something. So,
You know, Chris, one thing you talked about the side by side scenario, and that's where I think in manufacturing, where I've seen and heard about the, you know, the issues that impacted our the people we sell to, our customers. But, you know, kind of the interesting part, a lot of the coating shops, people are very used to wearing respirators and masks and coveralls and gloves and all kinds of things like that. So in a lot of times in the coating process, people are kind of spread out, you know, from where they're handling parts to masking to spraying to curing to QA to, you know, shipping and receiving. They kind of have these little pods around the plant. So as long as people were able to space out enough, which typically wasn't a problem for most of our customers, to the transition to COVID really wasn't too difficult because people were already used to the safety measures and the precautions that for us, say like in our office, wearing wearing a mask was like a huge transition. But for them, people are used to wearing it already. So I think from that standpoint, as long as the space was appropriate, the transition to dealing with a COVID workspace was a pretty easy transition for a lot of our customers.
and Mike, if I could just elaborate on that a little bit more, that's a great point. Nick, Teflon work is done in stages, and some of the coders were able to actually manage phases of the Teflon work, and, you know, stretch out their work days a little bit longer, focus on certain aspects of the Teflon process during one part of the day, and then move it to the next phase. So, you know, they were all, you know, a lot of guys were really smart about it and able to keep up with manufacturing. Now, maybe a little bit of delay here and there, but you know, we heard stories about, you know, changing our work day, or, you know, we added in a Saturday. We didn't normally do that, but we did because, you know, we can't have as many people here at one time. And, you know, from a coder perspective, we didn't hear a lot about outbreaks, you know, as we did from guys, the one that, you know, the higher volume manufacturing side. So, you know, I think the coders did a really good job managing the situation.
Nice. Well, I want to put one last question out to both of you. I'll start with you, Chris, and then we'll wrap up with Mike. Because I think the important parts here, we discuss a lot of important stuff, but I like to leave I like to leave us with an optimistic view. So if we can share some advice. Is there any advice for your customers that you could lend here? How can coders grow and capitalize on this particular moment in time?
One of the things that they can do is I think they need to look at their diversity. You know, am I really heavy in one specific industry? You know, I think some of our coders learn from that. You know, let's say you were automotive heavy when all the automotive makers, you know, closed for a period of time. I mean, that really hurt your business. So one of the things that, you know, that they should be doing or are doing right now is looking at other industries where they could do business. You know, you look at how far you cast your line as a company. You know, do I just service 150 miles radius, or am I going, you know, across the country to do work? But look at specific industries, areas where you're not doing business, where you know Teflon is done. And I think that's the smartest thing guys could do, because, you know, Mike had alluded earlier on recession and how Teflon's fairly, at least the food industry is fairly recession proof. But it had an effect. The pandemic had an effect on the food industry, and we've seen it. Directly affect hospitality and colleges, universities. I don't think we ever saw that. And if you were, basically, that was your industry that you were working in, you really got stung by the pandemic. And it definitely behooves you to look at other industries and find ways to bring a little diversity in your jobs in house, for sure.
Very well said, Mike.
I think one of the things that we try to practice to help us capitalize on a negative situation like COVID that could be extended to our customers or to virtually any other business is really strong communication, both internally with team meetings and Zoom calls and conference calls and messaging and all that kind of stuff. The internal strong foundation of communication is huge, but then externally and is trying to get in touch with those that you're familiar with and maybe that you're not so familiar with to understand what's happening in their world and to help, build the foundation and reestablish if necessary, but just continue to let people know that you're there and that you want to help in any way you can. And that when we emerge from a situation that foundation is already established and you're 2 steps ahead of your competition, hopefully. So we really, this is a huge part for us is really staying in touch internally as well as externally.
Outstanding.
I think it's important, Nick, also, that Mike talked about communication is keeping those calls going to your customers, understanding, what they're going through, having some empathy or sympathy with what's happening, but also, get a dialogue going about, what are you seeing? What are you guys focused on? Because they'll ask in return. And if you get that, that tit for tat going, that's gold because, as much as we try to educate our customers, they educate us as well and tell us things that, that's going on in their world. And it's things that, we can look at and go like, they mentioned this industry or they mentioned this application. Maybe we should look into that a little bit more, and that's like super important to, for our customers that we haven't gone away. We're still here. And let's talk about the, ways that we could, benefit.
Absolutely. I think that Mike mentioned, moving through a negative time or negative period. The real tragedy would be going through that and not learning anything and not gaining anything. Speaking to both of you today, I'm learning about we're adapting, we're educating, we're putting greater focus on connecting and maintaining those sort of things. So it gives me a lot of hope that we're going to come out on the other side better. And that's a really, really cool thing. So I want to thank both of you for your time today and for your excellent give and take. I really appreciate it. Please visit intechservices.com, learn a little bit more about the company, about what we have to offer. And I want to thank your team who's holding down the fort right now back in Newark. And I look forward to doing this when we can do it in person. So until next time, you guys be well. Thank you so much.